What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Welcome back to The Respawn, a weekly series where I answer your questions. Let's get started. First up, do you think Overwatch will make another stealth-based hero? I'm not so sure on that. It's a possibility, but the thing is, stealth and invisibility is a really strong utility in the game. It's very powerful, and it's kind of difficult to balance around. And if you look at Sombra, she's got permanent invisibility, but none of her abilities can deal any damage. Even her ultimate, nothing does damage except for her normal attack, and that's how they have to balance out that powerful of an ability, being able to go invisible for long periods of time. Now, I think if they were going to add another stealth-based character, it would probably make more sense to have something that's a very short duration, maybe 3 to 5 seconds or so. You get a pretty big burst of speed when you use it so that you can reposition yourself, and then maybe you get some sort of damage bonus or something when you come out of it. So you could have it like that, where it's more of a utility to kind of reposition yourself quickly without the enemy knowing that you're there, or possibly even as an escape ability or something. But I don't know if they would be willing to have another permanent invisibility character. I don't know, I don't think so. Instead of more anti-heal, should there just be less healing in general? I've been saying it for a while that there's too much healing in game. I believe that Blizzard also acknowledged this. It might have been Jeff Kaplan in one of his forum posts, where there's just too much healing in the game. But I don't think lowering the healing across the board, just nerfs to all the healers, is a good idea. The problem is, a lot of players don't like to play tank and they don't like to play support. One of the reasons for that is because they don't really feel that it's impactful. When you're playing DPS, you get the sound effects and the messages on the screen and all the feedback telling you, hey, you got an elimination and all that sort of stuff. But when you're playing tank or support, you don't get any of that for the most part, right? And it just doesn't feel like you're being all that impactful sometimes. Even though you might be, maybe you did something that really saved your team or protected a teammate or something, but the game doesn't really tell you. And, that's one of the reasons why people don't like to play these. And if you're having a support character whose healing has been nerfed quite substantially, it just feels like you're not going to be able to keep your teammates alive, right? Like, they're going to take damage, and if your healing has been nerfed to the point where it's not all that great, and you're trying to heal your teammate, but they end up just getting eliminated anyway, it's not going to be a really good feeling for that player. And because of that, I don't think that across-the-board nerfs to the healing is a good idea. I think what a better solution would be is to kind of add other elements that can counter it. And it doesn't have to be full 100% antis like what you have with Ana's Bionade and that sort of stuff. It could be percentage stuff, 20%, 30%, 50%, that sort of deal. There's all kinds of different things you could have. Single target, area effects, you could have all different kinds of abilities or attacks that can reduce the healing on different targets. And I think that would just be a better way to kind of add counterplay to the game. And across the board nerfs to healing would just make people not want to play healer. Next up, can we have monstrous characters? I'm not really sure what direction you're going with this, as in monstrous as in the character looks like a monster, or monstrous as in the character is gigantic. I don't think the whole gigantic character thing is gonna work. I wouldn't go any bigger than what we already have with Reinhardt, Roadhog, D.Va, that sort of stuff. When you start getting those really big hitboxes, it's gonna make it way, way too easy in order for pretty much everybody to hit that character. And because the hitbox is so large and because it's so easy to hit them, you would have to give them way more health. 800, 900, 1,000, something like that. And then you're basically just making a worse Roadhog, where, Roadhog is already considered an ult battery in most cases, and if you have a character that's like really big with a lot of health, then it's just, the other team would just get their ultimate almost instantly from this, and it just wouldn't be a good idea and it wouldn't work. However, if you're talking about the monstrous as in characters that kind of look monster-like, I think it could work, but not like... I don't think they're going to add creatures and that sort of stuff, because it doesn't really fit with the game, but they could have Omnics that kind of look that direction. Because if it's artificial, if it's a robot, then you could make it look whatever you want, and that could certainly be a thing. But as far as like the organic or human-like things that are kind of like adding a Minotaur or something, like if you were going to do that, then it would have to be an Omnic. So you could have that kind of thing, but it would probably have to be restricted to being the robots. Next up, why are they not bringing us news about Overwatch 2? I'm pretty certain Blizzard was counting on Echo to hold everyone over for quite a while, but they didn't expect the negative response that a lot of the players gave to it, because from what I can see, Blizzard was treating Echo as this super amazing character. It can fly, she has all this cool stuff, and she's got a really cool ultimate and this and that, and it doesn't matter that it's a DPS. But then when players saw it, they're like, hey, we don't need a DPS, we need another healer or another tank. And it just didn't go the way that Blizzard wanted to. So I don't think that Echo is really going to hold people over for as long as Blizzard wanted. Although the character is still on the PTR, and once it hits console, there will be kind of this little bit of a resurgence in the interest in the character and that sort of stuff. But another good reason for Blizzard to not release anything right now is because they would have to compete with Valorant, which just went into closed beta, which is extremely popular. So they would have to compete with that, and they would lose. Like, Overwatch 2 would just get pushed to the side, and no one would give it any attention because you have this new game that's in beta, and you can go and play that versus just whatever about Overwatch 2. I do think there's a possibility we could get some more information at the anniversary event. I know some people have asked if they're going to announce Overwatch 2 at anniversary, like the release date and all that sort of stuff, or maybe even put the game out. I don't think that's going to happen at all, but I do think that we could get a little bit more information with the anniversary event, but I don't really expect a lot more Overwatch 2 stuff until BlizzCon, which isn't till November. That's pretty good ways away. See, the thing is, Blizzard was hoping that Overwatch League would basically keep everyone excited, and it's just not. I've said this before. Like, a lot of people just are not interested in the Overwatch League. And from what I can tell, it's getting a lot less views than it did before. I mean, obviously, there are other circumstances and this and that, but I don't really expect any new Overwatch 2 information, anything significant, that is, for quite a while, with the exception of maybe something at the anniversary. Next up, would a character that uses mana work instead of cooldowns? We kind of already have something similar to that with the fuel gauge system for characters like Bastion, Moira, and D.Va. So that functionality is already kind of in the game. You could have a character that relies more heavily on that sort of thing instead of the normal cooldowns. I think it could work, but if you're talking about having any kind of like magic caster, magic user in the game, I don't think that's ever going to happen. It just doesn't really fit with the game, and anything that they do would probably just be some variation of the fuel gauge anyways. Next up, would an ability that guarantees critical hits work? Normal hits are converted into criticals. I've thought about something like this for some of my hero concepts, but when you look at it, it's really just doubling whatever the damage is. It's basically a 100% damage boost on your normal attack, and that's really it. So calling it a critical, I mean, it's just kind of like extra steps. You don't really need to do that. You could just say, hey, you're going to get 100% damage boost. But then you also have to look at how much is 100% damage boost. That's a lot, because Mercy, her damage amp is only 30%, Orissa's ultimate is 50%, Baptiste's ultimate is 100%, but it's confined to that little area, and obviously it's an ultimate. So if you're going to add something that's going to essentially double your damage for a certain amount of time, that's a very, very powerful ability. I mean, it could possibly work, but I think it would have to be really, really carefully balanced. Maybe it would be on like a pretty long cooldown, like a 15-second cooldown or something, and I don't really like the super long cooldowns. I think you would be better off just saying, you know, for the next couple attacks, you get a 30% bonus or a 40% bonus. That's still a lot of extra damage. But again, when you're talking about criticals, you're just basically doubling the damage. Next up, do you think people who refuse to switch are throwing due to hard counters and or not doing much to benefit the team? Yes, absolutely, it's a form of soft throwing. Essentially, they're just being stubborn is what it all boils down to. Maybe they're a one trick, or maybe they just don't want to accept the fact that, you know, whatever, and they're just not willing to switch. And if you know you're being countered, if you know you're not being effective, and you're still unwilling to help the team in order to be more effective, in order to provide your team a better chance to win, if you're just being stubborn, then yeah, that's throwing. That absolutely is. Will Overwatch 2 have a ranked or a competitive mode? Yes and no. It's still going to have all of the functionality that Overwatch 1 has. So let's say you've never played Overwatch and you just buy Overwatch 2, then you're still going to have access to quick play, the arcade, the competitive ladder, all that sort of stuff with the improved graphics and all that. And the way that they're working it is that Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 players can still be put in the same game, so it doesn't matter which one you have. You might end up with, if you're playing Overwatch 1, you might end up with people from Overwatch 2 in your game, and vice versa, that sort of stuff. But the main part of Overwatch 2 is the campaign, the story stuff. That is going to be, from what they've told us, that is only going to be PvE. So you and 3 other people, it's just like the Archives missions, where it's, 4 of you versus just computer-controlled enemies, and that's it. And there's going to be story and other different things that they're going to add to it. But as far as a competitive aspect to that, I don't believe that there's going to be anything. However, something that I would really like to see, maybe they could do it at some point, is what they did with Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, where you have the normal 4-player co-op into the story where you just go against the computer-controlled stuff, but they also had a versus mode where you would have one team of 4 and then you would have another team of 4. So let's say red team and blue team. So red team is the survivors and they go through the map as far as they possibly can, and blue team controls some of the special enemies, and you try to stop the survivors from getting to the end of the map. And then once that's done, then you switch places, and then it's blue turn to go through the map, and the red team tries to stop them. So I think that would be really cool if you're playing as, whatever the Overwatch team is in Overwatch 2, and then on the enemy side, you have 4 other players who are controlling Talon or Null Sector or whatever you want to throw in there, right? That would be really cool to have a versus mode like that. But so far, we haven't heard anything about that. So as far as Overwatch 2, yes, you'll still have access to quick play and arcade and competitive, but is there going to be competitive or ranked story campaign stuff? Probably not. At least not at first. And that's going to be all the questions for this week. Thank you to everyone who submitted one. I already posted the question card for next week's Respawn. It's on the community tab of my YouTube channel. And also don't forget, if you want to see a complete list of every single Respawn question that's ever been asked, you can find it in my Discord server. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. You can get some cool gear, join my Discord server, or follow me on social media with the links down in the description below. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, and remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.